Hi, I'm Emily from Calvert Library, Fairview Branch. Thank you for tuning in to Calvert Library Black Authors Matter. In this video, Calvert librarians will recommend some stellar titles for adults to try. We have a fantastic lineup of books for you to add to your reading list, everything from thrillers to science fiction to biographies. Enjoy. All right, we're going to start out with Jen.
Hi, everybody. This is Jen from the Calvert Library in Prince Frederick, and I just read the book Real Life by Brandon Taylor. So in the landscape of the Black Lives Matter movement, I really wanted to read a book by a Black author about a Black character. And this story follows Wallace, who's an introverted Black queer college student studying biochem in a Midwestern town. Wallace is struggling with his own truth, and he's surrounded by people, including his own friends, who harbor biased opinions of him because of his race. So I'm a huge fan of Donna Tartt, and the quality of the writing and the in-depth character development reminded me of The Goldfinch. Like The Goldfinch, this story is an intimate detail of the character's life and the painful and sometimes brutal unraveling of his pain. No surprise to me that Real Life has been nominated for the Booker Prize of 2020. So give it a try. It's definitely on my top 10. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I work at the Prince Frederick branch of the Calvert Library. Today I'm here to share my review of I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. This book is by Austin Channing Brown. It's an eye-opening book that unapologetically speaks to racism and as seen through the eyes of the author. In her book, Ms. Channing writes both about her childhood and her adulthood struggles with racism. As a child, she writes, I was too Black for the white students, and I was too white for the Black students. And so in her book, she talks about how she learned to gauge this gauntlet of trying to fit in and how to fit in. The book ends on a happy note, and she has found her way, and she's able to come into her own.
So we're going to keep going then with Maya.
Hello, I'm Maya from the Fairview branch. Yesterday, I read My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is a novel of light suspense that begs the question, just how far are you willing to go for your sister? And who do you turn to when she's your closest friend? And a serial killer in denial. I love thrillers, so this title caught my eye. I enjoy that it's a very fast read. The writing is sharp and poetic, and some of the chapters are less than half a page. It's a perfect weekend read. Oyinkan Braithwaite is an award-winning Nigerian writer, and this novel is set in Lagos, transporting readers to the heat and cadences of Nigeria's bustling coastal city. Check out My Sister, the Serial Killer for an edge-of-your-seat read about relationships, Nigerian life, and murder. Thank you.
That is definitely up on my to-read list, Maya. Hi, I'm Shannon, and I'm at the Prince Frederick branch. I'm excited to share Friday Black with you, a collection of stories by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And Friday Black is like Black Mirror, but the stories reflect the injustices and violence that Black people experience in our country every day. They're like episodes in a series about a dystopian America where racism is normalized, accepted, expected, and exploited in every aspect of society and culture. In the first story, The Finkelstein Five, a white man is acquitted in less than half an hour of grabbing his chainsaw out of his trunk and decapitating 5 Black siblings playing outside the public library because he believed he and his own children were in danger. And as his lawyer tells the jury, if you believe something, anything, then that's what matters most, believing. In America, we have the freedom to believe. Racism as entertainment and sport is explored in Zimmerland, an amusement park where people can pay to live out their fantasies of administering vigilante justice to Black staff hired to portray thugs. One of these young actors rewrites the script when the park makes a disturbing new change to its admission policy. Rabid consumerism is the theme of several stories, as you can tell from the title, including the title story Friday Black. The body count rises as mall customers fight over discounted puffy coats and denim on Black Friday, while salespeople lose their souls competing to be the top seller. Unfortunately, I have been on both sides of that battle, but this story is much uglier. Friday Black is Ajay Brenya's stunning 2018 debut, a first-rate collection offering a razor-sharp view of America that takes our history and current events to terrifying and outlandish extremes. It feels scary yet plausible at the same time, unfortunately. I highly recommend Friday Black if you love hip dystopian fiction and are passionate about social issues. The combination is fire, and I can't wait for his next book. I'm hoping for a novel. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Reiner from Fairview Branch. So when we were doing this reader's advisory, I wanted to do something on fantasy, and I kept coming back to Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone. I remember when this first walked into the library, I was like, oh, I have to read this. I mean, the art is just fantastic. Reading it, you already knew you had something special. Now, this book is classified as young adult, but I believe adults will enjoy immersing in Adeyemi's West African-inspired fantasy world. This story happens in Orisha, a land inhabited by magi, magic wielders, and Kosidan. They're the non-magical wielders. So the magic disappears, and the story is based on how the Kosidan are trying to suppress and oppress the magi, and how they're trying to get their magic back. So from the very beginning, Adeyemi projects the cruelty of racism through skin tone and class, and the definition how it segregates both classes, and how the oppressed will push back after years of abuse. The story is very exciting and fast-paced. Though it is a fictitious world created by Adeyemi, the West African inspiration is projected through names, places, language, clothes. This book does portray violence and strong language. I do highly recommend this book, and it is the beginning of the Legacy of Orisha series. The second one is The Children of Virtue and Vengeance. The book is also scheduled to be adapted into a full feature film, so pick it up.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and I'm from the Twin Beaches branch of Calvert Library. Today, I want to share with you a book called Kindred. It's written by Octavia E. Butler. So for this novel, think The Time Traveler's Wife meets Sue Monk Kidd's The Invention of Wings. All right. The book opens with this young, hip African-American woman. She's moving into her first home in California, and it's the 1970s. She's unpacking. She gets dizzy. Things get fuzzy. She's not sure what happened, but suddenly she's outside, and there's a creek flowing, and there's this boy drowning. So, of course, she dives in. She pulls him out. She gives him CPR. And she's met with confusion and curiosity. People think she's a man. I mean, why would a woman be wearing pants and have short hair? She blacks out again and wakes up back in her new house in the 1970s. She has no idea what's happened, but this happens over and over again. And each time she has to save the same stupid white boy getting himself in mischief. She eventually learns that she's traveling to a pre-Civil War plantation in Maryland, and that this boy she keeps saving is somehow tangled up in her own family's history. So I read the first 2 chapters of this book almost 20 years ago in a 10th grade English class. The teacher, straight out of college, was reading it and wanted to share it with her students, but didn't have a budget to purchase 20 copies. So she photocopied like the first 10 pages, passed them out, and we all talked about it in like one class. Then, like most high school students, I completely forgot the author and title and never got to finish the book. So this unfinished story has haunted me every so often until a year and a half ago. I was in a meeting and a librarian was talking about a book she had read recently. And I knew she was talking about my book. And I was like, stop, go back. What is the author and title? I have to know. Since everyone probably already forgot the author and title, like I did as a stupid high school student, I'm going to give it to you again. It's Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to you. This book, you're going to love it. It mixes issues of slavery, human rights, racial prejudice, and it does it in a science fiction, romance, historical fiction mix. And if that's not enough, it's also available as a graphic novel. So enjoy.
That sounds like a really awesome read, Lynn. Thanks for sharing. I'm Michaela, and I work at the Prince Frederick branch of the Calvert Library. And this year, one of my favorite books that I read is Dear Ijewele, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions, written by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is probably the shortest book I read this year. It's only 62 pages, and yet it has stuck with me. I think about it probably daily. Sometimes when we see the words feminist and manifesto, we think, oh, that's going to be an angry read or a really hard read. But this book actually came from a book that, an email that Adichie sent to a friend when the friend gave birth to a baby girl. And from that email, she crafted a book. So this book, the language is poetic. It's filled with love and passion. And it's built on the premise. Adichie says, your premise should be, I matter. I matter equally, not if only, not as long as. I matter equally, full stop. And those words just, they get me in my feels. And as any parent knows, when you have a child, you want the world to be open to them. And even if you don't have a child, there are people that you love and you want them to have every option, and you want them to be strong and resilient. And this is a short read that just makes you think about ways you can impart that in the people that you love. Some of the suggestions are so simple, just be a full person or read. Of course, that's something all librarians love to suggest. Again, it's just a short read, but I promise it will stick with you. And if you love this type of book, I highly recommend another book by Adichie called We Should All Be Feminists. And then this is another book that I'm actually, let's see, well, we can't see the picture, but it's called Americana. Okay, and this is a novel, and it is about the story of a family that has come to America from Africa. And the really cool thing is it's being turned into a mini series. So dive into books by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I promise you, you will not be able to stop reading them.
That's awesome. I have read two of the three, of course, the two short ones. So hi, everybody. My name is Brittany. I actually work over at the Fairview branch of Calvert Library. And growing up, I hated sci-fi. The only sci-fi I liked was Star Trek, and I'm talking about the original series. None of that Next Generation, none of that. I honestly don't even know any of the other versions. Discovery, I guess that's the new one. And the reason I loved it is because I saw myself in Lieutenant Uhura. This sassy, headstrong woman just walked in the room and told all those men, "You're breaking things," and she was gonna fix it. So today, what I brought with me are a series of books. This is the Benty series of novellas. They are all incredibly short. Together, they aren't even 350 pages, and that's including the author's notes. So what drew me to Benty is this same sense of, even though everything is going wrong, there is this through line of hope, just like you'd get in the original Star Trek series with its extra level of campiness. So these are written by Nnedi Okorafor, who is currently writing the Shuri graphic novels. She's also written for Black Panther. So she has a great sense of what makes action work, both in images, but also in words. So these are driven by action. So Benty herself, our protagonist, is a young woman. She is in flux because her people, the Himba, do not leave Earth. No Himba has ever left Earth, but she has been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study at the most famous university in the galaxy. How do you say no to that? So her story then goes through her conflict of wanting to get understanding, wanting to grow. Oh, and did I mention that magic in this world is based on math? because that's great. And she's one of the greatest harmonizers her culture has ever known. And how do you pass that up? So what really drew me into this is not just the action, but also how crazy varied the cultures were that Nindio Corford shows. It's not just men in pointy ears and a green woman, but we actually have cultures that think differently from each other, that look differently from each other, and they all have to coexist in this world. And more often than not, Benti finds herself at the center of things. So she becomes our hook to make all these alien lives more human for us as the readers. Everything she deals with, even as she's literally fighting against alien armies, is very based in a general sense of what makes us human and what is humanity. So definitely worth picking up. Again, the first book, you could finish this in a single setting. I actually read it on a plane. I suggest it for pretty much anyone, though do know, as mentioned, there's a lot of action, and because this is adult, the violence is not censored. So I would not recommend it for young readers, but it is great for us adults, especially those of you looking for something new in sci-fi that won't be too heavy to get into.
That's fabulous, Britt. Thank you. So I am Sandy. I work at the Twin Beaches branch, and a lot of people are talking about new titles, which are fabulous, and there's so many that I want to read now, but I decided to go in a completely different direction and pick up something older, and I want to recommend the autobiography of Malcolm X. If you have not yet read this, then now is the time, because this book, even though it was published over 50 years ago, is sadly, tragically, still so relevant in all of the issues that we're talking about as the Black Lives Matter movement has kind of taken hold in this country. So I first read this in college. In fact, that's the sticker from my college bookstore on my copy right there. So I had this book for a very long time. But it was just gripping to learn about the life of Malcolm Little, who would become Malcolm X, one of the most influential leaders in the civil rights movement in the 60s. So as I said, it was published posthumously after Malcolm's assassination in 1965. And it was based on a project, a series of interviews between Malcolm X and his co-author, Alex Haley, who of course went on to write Roots. So Haley had written several articles about Malcolm X and about the Nation of Islam. Malcolm was one of the prominent spokesmen for the Nation of Islam at the time. And he came to him about this idea about writing a biography about his life. So eventually Malcolm agreed, and they started these interviews. But at first, Malcolm didn't trust Alex Haley. He told him 25%. He trusted him 25%. They disagreed on religion. They disagreed. Alex Haley had served in the military for years. They did not see eye to eye. And so most of the sessions at first were just Malcolm X talking about the rhetoric of the Nation of Islam and praising his leader, Elijah Muhammad. But eventually, over time, Haley began to sort of break down these walls. And he remembers one night, Malcolm came to a session. They did these sessions very late at night, so he was often very tired. But this one in particular, he was just exhausted. And he ranted and raved for a while until there was a quiet moment. And Haley said to Malcolm, "Mr. Malcolm, could you tell me something about your mother?" And as soon as he asked that question, he stopped. And he did start to talk about his life. This project was supposed to be about his life, not about the Nation of Islam. And he finally did start to talk about his life. And it was a tragic, difficult life, but unfortunately so emblematic of things that were happening all around him at the time. So he was born into a large family, but by the age of 6, his father was killed at the hands of white supremacists in their town, although the record never showed that. They said it was an accident. Shortly after that, his mother, who was trying to keep the family together, was committed to a mental institution, and all the kids went into foster care. So he went to school with whites for a while, with a white family that he was fostered with. But despite the fact that he was a good student, he dropped out after 8th grade, after he was told by a teacher that being a lawyer, which is what he really wanted to do, was out of the reach of anyone who looked like him. So he went to live with a sister and then went to live in the big city in New York. And like many young men then and now, he fell into a bad crowd. And at 21, he was convicted and sent to prison for 10 years. So just think about his life, just the first half of his life. It was in prison that he discovered the Nation of Islam and completely remade himself, which is another amazing story. But think about just those first first 25 years. So his father was killed at the hands of whites. His mother was sent away. He suffered through the economic depression, the Great Depression, with his family. He experienced integration as he went with a foster family, then to an urban center where many African Americans were going at the time for opportunity. Gets failed by the education system and then is sent to prison. So we're talking about the experience of so many men that were happening at the time. And that really is what's remarkable about this story. There was a quote I found from a historian. His name is Zaire Ali. And he says about this book, the book is a story of one man, it's the story of a people, and it's a call to action all wrapped into one. And I couldn't agree more. That's the best way that I can think to say it. So Malcolm X was a very controversial figure, as you probably know, but so influential at the time and even up to today. So I recommend it highly. The book became, of course, the source material for Spike Lee's movie, Malcolm X. Also worth your time. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that too. And I also want to mention one more, a young adult book, actually on the same topic, that's called X, a Novel. It is a fictional account, but based on Malcolm Little's life, interestingly written by one of his daughters, Ilyasa Shabazz. So I recommend that one as well. I actually just recorded a book bite for this one that's coming out soon. So if you haven't found our book bites, take a listen to this one. So I hope that you too will be inspired by this story. And I want to end with a quote from Malcolm X himself. He said, "People don't realize how a man's whole life can be changed by one book." Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that was absolutely phenomenal. I have a real love of detective mysteries. I'm a big fan of procedurals, and I think that my focus and my favorite thing to read with regards to mysteries and detective fiction are noir flavored, and that just means things start out bad and they just keep getting worse. And I looked into a new author that I hadn't read before, Attica Locke. The first book I read of hers was The Cutting Season, and I really enjoyed The Cutting Season. It was a great mystery, and the main character was a woman who had started out her life as a lawyer, but never quite made it through law school, and ended up coming back to manage a plantation. And it was great, but it didn't hit the flavors that I like the most, which are those hard-boiled detectives. So I picked up Bluebird. It's the first book in a series that Attica Locke is writing about a Black Texas Ranger. Attica Locke lives in Houston, Texas, and she's from Texas. So she really brings Texas into the forefront and all of the problems associated with being a Black person living in Texas. Darren, who is a Texas Ranger, is going through personal and professional crisis. He's distracting himself with a job that takes him to investigate a double murder in a very small town that's rife with members of the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, armed with his badge, but questionable authority. Because of the crisis that's going on with him, he is in suspension, maybe. We're not quite sure what his status is, but when he takes the job to go in and look into this double murder, he keeps showing his badge, but he's really not sure if anybody actually looks into it, whether or not it'll be supported. So Darren Matthews, he's traditionally tormented detective protagonist. And when I read this book, it struck me that this is a absolutely great example of classic noir. And Locke is really adept at building character and twisty plots. I think that one of the best parts of Bluebird is the depiction of Texas. And you see Darren going through all of these troubles, and people keep confronting him. His wife is asking him, why are you continue to put yourself in these situations that are dangerous? Why are you setting yourself up to fight these battles that are so unpredictable? You could get hurt, something terrible could happen to you. And And I think it's summed up in a quote, "It's not making excuses," Darren said. "It's knowing that I'm here too. I'm Texas too. They don't get to decide what this place is," he said. And I feel like that is throughout the 2 books that I've read of Attica Locke's a theme of hers. This is my home, and I live here too, and no one else has more right to live here. I'm equally at home here. And it just struck a chord with me, and I absolutely loved Bluebird, Bluebird, and I hope you do too.
Well, I hope you are as excited as I am to pick up these books. Visit calvertlibrary.info to find these titles and to explore all that Calvert Library has to offer. Have a great day.